Today we're going to talk about the difference between the most common stoves out there now, or inserts, wood burning inserts on the market. Non-catalytic versus hybrid catalytic. And I would say that makes up for 95% of the wood burning inserts that are out there today. The most common question I get from a customer is, why do I want a catalytic combustor? Or I read I don't want a catalytic combustor on the internet. So I'm just here today to tell you what the difference is between them and what I think. So you start with what's been around forever, is a non-catalytic stove. So a non-catalytic stove is really a secondary burn system. So if you look at the top of the firebox, you're going to see a baffle system, which is basically either ceramic or steel that's going to block the smoke from exiting through the chimney immediately. And then there's always 2, 3, 4, depending on the size of the stove, tubes up top. So that's bringing in combustion air from the room to reburn the smoke at the top of the firebox. So the concept is you're going to set your wood right on the bricks, you're going to light your fire, the smoke's going to try to rise up, get stuck at the baffle system at the top of the firebox and get introduced with secondary air. So it's going to start to burn a lot of that smoke at the top of the firebox before it has an opportunity to come forward and out the chimney. When you do that, it's very effective at reburning that smoke at hot temperatures, at higher burn rates. The EPA regulates all solid fuel appliances and they have to meet a certain efficiency standard. So for a non-catalytic secondary burn stove, this particular stove, Vermont Castings Montpelier 2, for every non-catalytic stove out there, for them to meet the EPA standards, they have to burn very hot. And what that means to you as the end user is that I better want a hot fire because I'm not going to be able to slow it down. I don't care what any manufacturer says, what any sales rep says, 7, 12-hour burn time, it's all baloney. It's all going to be based off of the size of the firebox, the species of wood, but I would say out of your average 2.2, 2.4 cubic foot firebox, you could expect like a true 4-hour, 5-hour burn time at the most. You almost never get an overnight burn in today's version of a non-catalytic stove. So if you said, I want a stove I just want to make my fireplace more efficient, I want a pretty fire, it's going to be hot, there's flames all over, I can handle the heat, I'm going to do it on the weekends or at nights, whatever, I don't really care when it goes out, perfect, you're a candidate. If you said, I want to heat my house with this, and this is in a living room that I'm hanging out in every day, or I want to sit in front of it and watch TV, well, you're going to want control. You're going to want to be able to turn that down. So you can't really do that in a non-catalytic stove. Although some of them may have an air control, a sliding bar you push in or out or left or right, it's not doing too much anymore. Vermont Castings and Quadrifier, they have a primer. So they don't even have an air control. This is called a fixed burn rate. So there is no control other than the blower. So I can push the primer and add more air to help me start my fire, but in 15 minutes that pops out and goes right to the preset rate. Now you can climb into a hybrid catalytic stove. So this has both systems. It has the same secondary burn tubes, so operates the same, except for now I have a catalytic combustor. And before it leaves through the chimney, I have the opportunity to allow it to go through the chimney directly, or I can go through the catalytic combustor. The idea of the catalytic combustor is it's also just an efficiency thing. So if I get my cat up to 500 degrees or so, and I were to force the air to exit through the catalytic combustor, it will cause a chemical reaction and reburn that smoke at a higher rate even than the secondary burn tubes. So technically it's more efficient, but efficiency to the end user doesn't really mean much because efficiency is measured on grams of emissions per hour, and I don't think you care how much soot you're putting into the air. So the benefit you get with a hybrid catalytic stove is that if I were to open my bypass damper and burn it just like this stove here to be a non-catalytic stove, I still have full air control. But I can still damper this stove down, starve it of oxygen, and burn it so low and slow that I'm just smoldering wood in the firebox, burning it for a really long period of time and producing a lot less heat. I also have the option to open it up and I can make it burn really, really fast, really hot, big fire, lots of flames in the firebox. But at any point, I can check the temperature of my catalytic combustor and say, okay, it's 500 degrees. Engage my cat, and now that's going to prolong the life of the fire. It's going to slow down how much air you're bringing in. It's also going to slow how much air is leaving through the chimney, and it's going to really extend your burn times. But by saying extend your burn times, it doesn't mean much. It really means slow down the process of the fire cycle. So you can only get so much heat out of so much wood. So when they advertise 20-hour burn times out there in the stove, well, if I was going to fill this stove up with wood and set it all the way to low and burn it catalytically and burn it for 20 hours, there's no fire in the boss. The glass is black, and I'm producing very little heat. So in reality, you might not do that often, but if you want to go to bed at 11 o'clock and wake up at 7 and still have a good bed of embers in there just to be able to toss a log in the fire, open it up and get it warm again, it's very easy to do so. If you're sitting in your living room watching a football game and it's a little warm, well, guess what? You could slow this down and have it produce less heat. So the other benefit of a hybrid cat stove is it almost always qualifies for a tax credit. Versus a non-cat stove, my opinion is the good ones don't qualify for a tax credit. If it does qualify for a tax credit, it's burning very, very hot. So you might not want that. They're both good. I don't think one's a lot better than the other. I just think that you want to buy the stove that's appropriate for how you want to use it. So I guess that's really it. That's a non-cat versus catalytic stove. Thanks.